Hi everybody, I'm Heather Matuozzo, the founder and director of Clouds End CIC, and I'm sorry I can't be with you in person today, but it's sort of one of my really important weeks actually, because it's right in the middle of Hoarding Awareness Week, which I will come back to talk about when I get to the end of this talk. And then Vicky, who is in person, is going to pick up from the little bits of info that I give you. So, as I said, Clouds End CIC was formed in 2009 to work with people who have hoarding behaviour. And under that umbrella, we sometimes work with people who hoard animals. Animal hoarding is going to have its own category of, within the diagnostic framework when the next DSM comes out in America, but at the moment it's still under the umbrella of hoarding disorder. So let's have a quick look at sort of what we're looking at. So why do people hoard in general? Well, it's nearly always a response to a trauma or several traumas which people experience, and trauma affects people really badly. It affects people physically, and your body remembers trauma and puts people into sort of a state of survival, which is a state of fight or flight. And to deal with being in that state of heightened anxiety, whatever the cause has been, people will then look for soothing activities and things that make them feel safer. And hoarding items is one of those. So for people who hoard animals, it's often a response to a substitute for love in that person's life. It could be they've never had any love, and so they find that sort of reciprocal love with the unconditional love you get through your relationship with animals. Or it could be love that's been lost due to bereavement or something like that. And that is definitely one of the main trauma reasons for people hoarding items. Or it could be part of a neurodiverse set of behaviours relating to autism spectrum disorders or ADHD. And it could be linked into that as well. But whatever it is, both the overwhelmed caregivers or the mission-driven rescuers are reacting to a need to soothe anxieties that they're actually more than likely unaware of the source of that anxiety and unaware of the effect that those things are having on their lives. So it's not a choice, which we'll look at. So what it is and what it isn't, it's a safety blanket. You're looking at some behavior that makes somebody feel safe and good. And in the case, as I said, often with animals, is loved. It's a soothing action to this anxiety of the survival state that one puts you in. And fight or flight is a state of agitation, which, it's heightened heart rate, it's heightened levels of adrenaline in the body, and you can't live with that for a long time, and so it needs to be reduced. And what it isn't is a conscious it isn't cruelty either, even though very often it appears to be. And this is where understanding comes in greatly, because people who have issues with trauma and the response to survival states need listening to. They need people to hear them, first of all, and to show empathy before they show solutions. And, we need to give solutions because this is how we react when we visit a heavily hoarded home. If an action is successfully keeping somebody safe, there isn't any reason for that person's brain to review. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And so it makes no sense when people offer solutions that appeal to them. But the issue started right at the beginning, where the trauma has been experienced, and then the brain brings in a sort of action that it feels is keeping that person safe, but the message has been a bit distorted. And therefore those things that get put together are not exactly right, but people don't know this. Also, hoarded homes or animal hoarding will cause a reaction in you. It will cause you to feel unsafe. It will put you into a small t trauma state of anxiety and fight or flight. And you will want to solve, even more so than the need to solve with items, with hoarding stuff rather than sentient creatures. But if you want to have a successful outcome, first of all, try not to react to the situation. Use your body language and your facial expressions and the tone of voice and the words that you use to help that person to feel safe in your company first. And then hopefully that person will feel able to open up to you more and have a dialogue with you better. It's really important to understand your side of the unsafeness, because this is often why it is such a difficult relationship to have with people. You don't realize that you are triggered by what you're seeing, and that will then give you a much stronger drive and need to solve it straight away. So know that this is going to happen to you. And as I said, use all that you've got, your body language, your facial expressions, tones, gestures, to give this feeling of safety, and try and keep this need to solve at bay, because it will just work in your favor, really. It's sort of setting a nice foundation for you to be able to work with someone. Statistically, there's not a lot of happy stories with people who hoard animals, and this also is known, and it makes it very difficult to even approach these situations with any form of optimism or hope, and you sort of carry that with you as well. The one thing that is known is the longer that these situations go unchecked or unvisited, the harder the intervention will be. I'm doing a big project with Birmingham City Council at the moment, and we have a lady who hoards cats and items. So her garden is entirely full, her house is entirely full, and she also has had at any one time up to 60 cats. 30 of those have been removed twice. She cannot hear anything to do with the RSPCA are helping her, but she doesn't see them as help, because they also have to take her to court to be able to remove the cats that she refuses to take in to get any help, which is really distressing for everybody involved, everybody. The cats, the lady involved, and all the agencies that are involved in this. And this is part of the reason why, the earlier that this can be spotted, the better. And I think for perhaps many of you listening to this, you might be the people who are really, really grateful for someone who might take on a rescue cat. Perhaps it's time to bear in mind that, especially if you have people who take on many rescues, perhaps there is something else going on, and could something be put into the way you sort of vet people, sorry for the pun, in the first place, or have something written about it in any adoption or rescue packs that you might produce, so that everybody is aware that this could be a point where somebody who's extremely keen to take on a couple of cats to start with, this might be the beginning. And so perhaps if you assume, if it's at all possible to do, better checks and follow-ups, and have a warning in there for anything like this, as a flag that this could be the beginning of somebody starting to hoard. Because nobody ever sets out with the desire to have 60 cats. It will start off with taking on one cat, and this feeling of having rescued an animal is a good soothing feeling in itself. It makes people feel useful. It makes people feel as though they have a purpose. And then, of course, then they take on another cat because perhaps one comes into their garden, or perhaps somebody offers them one and they go, yeah, I think I could do that. I've already had one, I'll take on another one. And of course, then, you know, families start to grow, and that's where the difficulty really starts. But that person never intended to have a cat sanctuary or to have that many cats to start with, but they still feel about every cat as they did about the first one. And so it's just a sort of word of warning. So I said there aren't many good stories, but I do have one very interesting and good story that came out of a training session I did a few years ago. And I was talking about exactly this within the training. We talk about animal hoarding. It's just a small section, and say, you know, that it is very difficult and that you always have to involve outside agencies. And this gentleman said to me, well, I've got a happy story. And I said, oh, please share it, because that's great to know. And he said, so in our local village, we have a bonfire every year. And because we're very proud of our bonfire, we want to make sure that we get loads of wood for it. And so we start collecting late summer. And we have a charity, so we like do jumble sales and things that collects money that will pay the volunteers their petrol that go out and collect the wood to make the bonfire. And he said, in that guise, I visited a lady who had 37 cats. She was elderly and she was quite poorly. And he said, I got chatting to her, and because I wasn't there about her cats, I was there to take some wood, and she showed me what I could take. But then she offered me a cup of tea and I accepted, because I could see that she was, you know, perhaps needing to have a chat. And so she brought up the topic of the cats, and she said, I don't want any of these cats to go, but I do realize that I'm not very well and that I might get worse, and I am struggling to look after these animals. And I would really, you know, I can't see a way out of this. And this gentleman had an idea. And so he said to her, if you don't mind if I pop back, I'll come back to get the wood later, closer to the bonfire date. But he said, I've had a little idea. And what he did was he went to the local cat sanctuary first and said, could you take on 37 cats all in one go? And they said, yeah, just about. And so then he went back to the charity and said, would you pay my petrol if I could take this lady to the cat sanctuary twice a week? And they said yes. And so he went back to the lady and said, I've had a word with the local cat sanctuary and they can take your cats off you, but they would like some help from you at the same time. And he said, they've said that they really would like somebody who knows and understands cats to be a cat petter. And he said, I can take you there and I can pick you up, and I can do that twice a week or 3 times a week. I can't remember exactly. And that's exactly what happened. So that lady got helped. She was reassured that it was okay. She stayed in contact with her cats. And she knew that if she got poorly, A, she wasn't isolated anymore, but B, she lived another 18 months. And so that was sort of the one success story that I've heard about. So I thought I would share it with you. And when he said bonfire, first of all, my face looked a little bit stricken, but actually it was a lovely story. And so I've come to the end of my session, but I did say that I would mention Hoarding Awareness Week. We are right in the middle of it, but for anybody that might be interested, we always do a week's worth of free webinars. So you've still got tomorrow's webinar, which is about trauma and hoarding by Kaylee Hyman, who's a fantastic trainer and teacher. She works with us, but she also helps people who hoard in Wales. And then that's on Thursday, and then on Friday we have a forum, just open forum, which we get people from all over the world joining in. And really this is where we sort of give space to people who have hoarding issues, who want to talk about it themselves. So if you go to the website hoardingawarenessweek.org.uk. You can join the talks from there, and I hope that this has been a little bit interesting and useful for you. And I'm going to hand it over to Vicky now, who's going to carry on, and will also be there in person to take any questions.